Hi there everyone, and welcome to this video. In today's video we'll be talking about the change log which is available to us within Business Central. So what would you use the change log for? Well, it's to track changes that are made to tables within our Business Central environment. So, for example, let's say there's a table which holds some important data. On there, we could be talking your chart of accounts, maybe some configuration tables like general ledger setup or something as such. And what you can do with the changelog is you can basically go in and choose to monitor changes that are made to fields on that particular table. Okay, so there are a few ways that we can do this in Business Central, and we will do some videos on the other ways. But for today, let's focus on the changelog. Okay, so in order to set this up, what I'm going to do in my BC environment here is just search for a table here called changelog setup. Okay, so on this table, I won't read through. I'll let you guys pause the video here and read through, but it's basically giving us some warnings here that we should consider. Be careful, when we're choosing the tables, and we shouldn't really add transactional tables such as ledger entries, posted documents to the changelog. So just basically be careful, guys, when you're enabling the changelog. Just because you don't want to end up in a situation where you're filling up your database very quickly with changelog entries just because we picked the wrong type of table to set up changelogs on. There are better ways to do some things. Obviously, it depends on what changes, what things you want to report on. But also we can set up something called a retention policy, which we will do another video on, just so you can see how that works. Okay. Okay, so in order to set up the changelog, what I'm going to do is up at the top here on the changelog setup page, I'm going to come into setup and I'm going to come into tables. Now, what this does is it gives me a full list of all of the tables within my BC environment on which I can set up the changelog. Okay, so you can see, guys, there's hundreds, thousands of tables in here. We don't want to be setting up changelogs on everything. Okay, but if I find a relevant table here, what I can do is I can say, for example, I want to go ahead and set up changelogs on the customer table. Okay, so that's table number 18 is our customer table in Business Central, and what I can do on this particular page is log inserts into the customer table, log modifications, or log deletions. Okay, so they are the three things that I can log on our customer table. Okay, and if I go ahead and drop down on here on the insertion, what I can do is I can choose some fields or all fields. Okay, so if I go into some here, what I can do is just click the little assist edit button here, and this brings up a list of the fields on the customer table that I can log the insertion of. Okay, so these fields probably look familiar. We've got the number field on the customer table, name, search name, name to, etc., etc. So I won't run through all of these, but what you can then go ahead and do is just go and tick those fields which may be important to you. Okay, so this is quite important here, guys, because again, as we mentioned earlier, you don't want to set up changelogs on those fields which it's not necessary to log. Okay, so for example here, if you didn't really care what the city field contained on the customer card, you wouldn't then go and log insertions into that. Okay, so just be careful with which fields you're picking here. Obviously pick enough to be able to log what you need to be able to track, but don't pick any more. Okay, now once I'm done, I can just go ahead and close that, and that will save my fields that I've selected. Okay, so if I click into that again, you'll see that it's got the same fields here selected. Okay, so other option here is I can choose all fields, or I can say I don't want to track changes, insertions rather, on the customer table. Okay, so if I do change this now, so if I pick all fields, what I'm going to get is a message here. So it says you have changed the log insertion field to no longer be some fields. Do you want to remove the field selection? So it's basically saying, you know, you spent some time putting some fields into the insertion because we selected some fields and we chose the fields, remember, by going into the assist edit. Now, if I change to all fields, it's saying it's going to go ahead and remove the field selection. So I can press yes or no on this. So just be careful of that if you're setting this up. So I'm just going to go ahead and say yes on this, and you'll see now that says all fields. Okay, and now if I try and click on the assist edit, it tells me log insertion must be equal to some fields in the changelog setup. Table number 18, current value is all fields. So we can only use the assist edit when we're choosing some fields, and all fields is basically just going to track all fields when we insert into the customer table. Okay, so just to keep it simple, I'm going to choose all fields for each of these on the customer table right now. Okay, so just to reiterate here, guys, maybe you wouldn't normally do this on all fields, just because you might not need to track all of the fields, you know, and you don't want to be filling up your database, especially if you're online in the cloud. You don't want to be filling up your database with unnecessary changelog entries. Okay, so now that that is set up, I'm just going to go with the customer table just so I can show you guys how it works. I'm going to go ahead and press close, and what I'm going to do then is say changelog activated. Okay, so I'm going to say yes on that tick box, and it basically says turning on the changelog might slow things down, especially if you're monitoring entities that often change. Do you want to log changes? So we spoke through that, and I said there's a warning in the background there that warns us of that. So I'm just going to go ahead and say yes. Okay, so just one thing to be careful of, the changelog will only be activated once a user logs in after the changelog activated ticks box has been populated there. Okay, so I guess you do this well before you go live, or you want to start tracking entries anyway, but just be wary of that. And in fact here, look, when I'm pressing back to go off this page, I'm getting a message here saying changes are displayed on the changelog entries after the user session has restarted. Do you want to restart the session now? So what we'll do is we'll just go ahead and say yes. And what that will do is it will log me out of Business Central and back in. So it'll restart my session. And now when I go back to my customer table, what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to go new on my customer table. I'm going to pick a template, and I'm going to start filling in some details. So I won't fill in any more details, so you don't have to watch me setting up a customer here, but what we've done is we've added a new customer, customer number 40, and I've given that customer a name, demo customer for changelog video. Okay, now what's happened is those changes have been tracked in the background. So if I search for a table here called changelog entries, what this table does is it's basically the place where all of our changes are held. Okay, now if I go to the end of this table here, you can see here I've got a date time, I've got a user ID, and I've got a customer table caption here, and I've got the primary key. Okay, so I've got a whole load of fields here that it's telling me these fields were either inserted or modified or deleted. You don't see that here because I didn't delete it. So it's basically tracking everything that I've done on that particular table. Okay, now if I scroll to the right hand side here, let's just focus on the name here, for example. So the name field, the type of change that we did was a modification, and see it says the old value and old value local here was blank, and the new value local was demo customer for changelog video. Okay, so it's basically tracking all of those insertions, those modifications, and those deletions on that customer table. So I won't go through all the fields here, guys, just because you can have a play and test this yourself in a sandbox environment, but you get the idea, guys. It's tracking the changes that have been made, so if you want to figure out who changed something, you can go, after you know what's been changed, you can go filter to your table caption, to your field caption, to your type of change, and you can get the user ID and date and time that the change was made. Okay, so also here, guys, I will mention, look, that's a whole load of changelog entries there just for adding a customer. So, as I said earlier in the video, I'll say it again, be careful when activating something like this. Maybe all fields is not a good thing to use, depending on what sort of information you're looking for. But as I mentioned earlier, we do also have retention policies that we can set up as well. So we'll do another video on that, and the retention policies basically can be set up to remove the changelog entries after a certain point in time. Okay, so I guess just one other thing on here. You do have analyze mode on this page. You can create a web service sort of API of this page as well if you want to put out changes to a particular environment, Power BI or Excel or something like that. Depends on how you want to report on these changes and when they're made, or the changelog entries and how you want to report on those. Okay, so just really want to get across that this is a page on which we can do some reporting if we want to. It depends how we want to use or surface the data within the changelog entries table. Okay, so that is everything that I wanted to run through on this video. I hope you guys found it useful. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.